Welcome to Italics, television for the Italian-American experience. I'm your host, Anthony Tamburri. March is Women's History Month, and March 8th is universally observed as International Women's Day. March is the month in which we observe and honor the myriad contributions that women have made to virtually every level of our world. To honor Women's History Month, we bring to you the Epiphany event for the Greater New York region of the National Organization of Italian-American Women, also known as NOIAW. We also highlight this month's Italian-American Women in Psychotherapy, an event held at Queens College last November. Olivia Tursi will also join us later on this episode. Held on January 16 at the Columbus Citizens Foundation, NOIAW honored three wise women: Cavaliere Maria Teresa Cometto, journalist, author, and curator; Laura Mattioli, founder and president of the Center for Italian Modern Art, also known as CIMA; and Dr. Ingrid Rossellini, independent scholar and author. Now let's go to NOIAW's Epiphany event at the Columbus Citizens Foundation.
We must celebrate women's achievement, and especially Italian-American women who too often are just thought to be in the kitchen, in cucina, cooking fabulous food, delicious food. But actually in America and in New York City especially, there are so many scientists and researchers and teachers, artists, entrepreneurs who are Italian-American women. And so I think it's important to emphasize this and to tell everybody.
You mentioned Italian-American. Most recently, you have become Italian-American.
Yes, exactly. I was born in Italy, in Novara, which is a town between Turin and Milan. I've been living in New York since 2000, and finally I decided it was time to make this big step and become also American. And so I hope I can bring together the best of the two countries, Italian culture, Italian passion.
Welcome to Italics.
Thank you very much. I am very proud to be part of the NOIAW and this community, and to be able to still work hard for Italian-American community.
It's very important that you are involved in modern Italian art and also avant-garde art. And that's really important for me as a scholar of early 20th century literature and avant-garde literature for futurism. And you have put up CIMA, the Center for Italian Modern Art. And tell us a bit about that.
Is a center of studies where there are many possibilities for young fellows to study, to share what they learn, and to discuss in the way Italian art is not only the Renaissance but also the modern, and a platform where to discuss and to know and to look in a different way, in a new way. And Italy is not only a follower of France but has its identity and its original contribution to the general culture of the world.
Congratulations to your mother and to you also representing.
Thank you. I feel like I need some congratulations. I saw her going through the process of this book for a long time. She is so focused and she has incredible patience. So we were all there with her and our dog who recently passed away. But thank you.
We will honor a dazzling and distinguished trio of nationally and internationally renowned, influential women. Maria Teresa Cometto, international journalist and author. Laura Mattioli, a visionary, locally and globally, promoting 20th century Italian art. Ingrid Rossellini, scholar of Italian literature and European history, which she argues are the roots of self-understanding, who we are, and how we should act. Now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you the Consul General of Italy in New York, Francesco January.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. You know that the calendar of 2019 starts the January the 1st, but this is fake news because for us, for the consulate, the real New York calendar starts with the Epiphany celebration of the wise women of NOIAW. Thank you very much. We are here to celebrate, as every year, the Wise Women Award. I think that you do an incredible work, Maria, and it's really for us a pleasure to give you our heartfelt grazie for what you do to strengthen the bridge between Italian Americans, Italians, between Italy and New York. Your activities draws on a historical background, but you're open to fresh ideas, to always renew your offer of solidarity, of support. And I really want to say that the awardee of tonight are great, are three bright stars of the Italian community in New York, and I really congratulate you on the choice. Grazie, viva le donne, viva l'Italia, viva New York.
The success of these events enables the Greater New York region to realize our organization's broad mission to connect and unite women through Italian culture and heritage, and as we're doing tonight, to celebrate the accomplishments of Italian American women. I, with honor, present to you Cavaliere Maria Cometto, Maria Teresa.
I'm so excited and honored to be together with Laura and with Ingrid in spirit. The three wise men brought gold, frankincense, and myrrh to Jesus, baby Jesus. You may think that our gifts are wise thoughts, beautiful art, and interesting stories. The stories that I've tried to write and tell since I moved to New York are mostly about Italians who excel in so different fields, not only in the most popular ones like food and fashion, but also science and technology. I would like to, in this special occasion, remember my mom, Rina, who loved so much her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren that sometimes she would dress up like a Befana and bring us gifts on the Epiphany. I'm sure she would have liked to be here with us.
This award that I received close to the 70s is very moving for me. I left Italy when I was already a bit older woman, and I decided to have a new life when the most part of the people decide to close their life and to take a retirement. But was not so easy at the time, and it's not so easy still for me to change completely my way to live from one country, from Europe, to state. But I really feel a part of this community. I recognize in NOIAW my same fate, that is mostly a commitment to education, mostly the young generation education, to promote progress in the society, in the democracy, in the respect of the others, in the liberty. I am deeply grateful to the NOIAW for accepting me officially in their group, in their community, in their goal. And I hope to be able to continue to contribute to the admission, which I make human more human, which is give a voice to the women that are so long and too much oppressed. Really, thank you, and I wish we can all work together for that.
I'm so thankful to be here. I'm so pleased to be here to accept this award on behalf of my mom. She feels especially honored to be receiving this award along two very accomplished women. She hopes in the future that she will meet you very soon. Unfortunately, Mama is not here today because she was recently diagnosed with triple-negative breast cancer, and she's undergoing chemotherapy. So today we went to our second chemo. She has lost her hair, but she's looking fabulous, I have to say. So she couldn't be here, as you can understand. So just to say, Mama, people choose many different paths on their illnesses, but Mama chooses to talk about this very openly because she wants to normalize cancer and bring awareness. Something she's not as open about is how long it took to write this book. She always mentions something that she read by the philosopher Pascal, who once wrote a long letter to his friend. At the end of the letter, he added, P.S. I'm sorry for writing such a long letter, but unfortunately I didn't have time to write a short one. As we know, being concise and clear is some of the hardest part about writing, and especially the self-editing piece, which Mama was very dedicated to. Mama immersed herself amongst the ancient writers, thinkers, and philosophers of the past. It took her a while, but what came out is a true masterpiece, and I hope you do read it. Mama loved the Greeks and their approach to life. Something that always inspired her was the Greeks' idea that the strongest type of learning comes when we go through difficult times. Somehow, when we are in these vulnerable states, we can learn a lot of empathy, develop patience, and be able to relate towards others. Mama worked long and at times very difficult hours writing this book. We're going through a difficult moment now, but she has opened herself to the difficulty and vulnerability of it all and learning every step of the way. So thank you very much. I'm very honored to be accepting this on her behalf.
Olivia Tursi, a psychological counselor at the Calandra Institute, reflected on personal endeavors as a female psychotherapist and small business owner through the lens of an Italian-American woman. In turn, Trisha Rossi, psychotherapist and adjunct professor at Suffolk Community College, discussed how women are influential in psychotherapy, small businesses, and psychology in higher education, focusing on how being an Italian-American woman influenced her professional journey.
As the fish cooked on the grill, pieces of my homemade focaccia disappeared synchronously with the wine in our glasses. We stood around the table, tempting our appetites as the smell of grilled zucchini permeated the backyard. My family was inquiring about my private practice, a new entrepreneurial venture I had started a few months before. They had unwaveringly supported and encouraged me to take the risk when I told them that I was considering starting my own business. And now, about 8 months later at a family dinner, I was sharing stories with them of my recent success. They proudly congratulated me and wished me continued good fortune. I could see their excitement. After hugs and kisses and a bit of catching up, the men and women separated to opposite ends of the house. The women in the kitchen, the men in the living room. Inside the kitchen was a flurry of activity, bread being sliced, oil being drizzled, secrets being shared. We talked about everything in there, so if you wanted to know what was going on with the family, the kitchen was the place to find this out. The kitchen was simultaneously our place of condemnation and our sanctuary. When the men did come in, they were often thrown out. But it was here, through the women's endless cooking and the time they gave at each meal, that they cared for their husbands, their children, their friends, and in a sense, themselves. Each plate that came from their kitchens came from their hearts as well. These moments in the kitchen created the frame for conversations to occur, which would inevitably pass values and ideals from one generation to the next, influencing future choices and behavior. I internalized much of what they showed me, including their feminism and strength, and perhaps most prominently, their nurturance and warmth. I then turned these ideals into a career. I carry this awareness into my work with young Italian-American women, knowing that they have likely received a great deal of information about their role as women. While most of them do report being encouraged to attend college and pursue a career, for some of them it has come with caveats such as the school has to be close to home, and the career doesn't really need to be all that ambitious. Most of them describe a lifestyle that incorporates both modern and traditional views, which include having both a career and a family. Their images of that family, however, feature a relationship built on equality and shared responsibilities. As one client explained, she's thrilled to have all of the professional opportunities available to her that once would not have been, but at the same time still feels the pressure to be that traditional Italian-American woman who does all the cooking and raises the children. As she put it, I quote, "Nothing was taken off of our plates. It's just that another huge, great piece was added on top of what was already there," end quote. As I continue to work with young women, it is my hope that they go on to empower other women, and that this cycle of raising each other up is perpetuated indefinitely, just as it has been among the women in my family. The Italian side of my family is the larger side of my family. This is my dad's side. My father was given a lot of responsibility at a young age, as were all of the boys. His father left the family for good when my dad was 16. He never saw him alive again. My father was, and still is, known in the neighborhood as a no-nonsense tough guy. He wears all black, he rides a motorcycle, he's a black belt in karate. He says what he means, and he'll back it up. It was and still is a hard worker with a strong sense of integrity. A handshake or his word is as permanent and binding as a legal document. My dad is old school, as is my mom. Old traditions, morals, values. The Irish and the Italians are so different and so similar at the same time. When it comes to their convictions and beliefs, it's to the grave. I understand my father's insistent lectures on what we were to become because he didn't want us to ever have to worry in the ways he did his entire life to support those around him. This is why he drove us to succeed. My mother wasn't far behind. Her softer approach supported his every statement and was followed up with, "But do what makes you happy. You can be anything you want, just do it well and love what you do." Be happy was her bottom line, be successful was his. And so I applied to college in upstate New York. This was a war in my house. For months, I was leaving the family. I was abandoning the family. This was unacceptable. I was to stay home. I was to live at home. I was to go to college because that was the only option, but I was to do it his way, by his rules and under his roof. I didn't. My mom supported my decision to be 4 hours away. A psychology major wasn't good enough. Wasn't the plan. It wasn't his plan. Because what did that even mean, and what does a psychologist do? Our family, his family, doesn't talk about feelings. They work hard, they get over it. And you don't share your personal business with strangers. Never share anything personal with outsiders, with people who aren't part of the family. And not in a mafia movie type of way, in an old school, traditional Italian kind of a way. I know I've accomplished exactly what they always dreamed for me to become, even though they weren't able to guide me in ways I sometimes needed in regards to school or work. But that seems almost irrelevant in comparison to all of the ways they've prepared me for life, for how to achieve my dreams and accomplish my goals that I set for myself. I can't imagine I'd be anything close to who I am today without their unconditional and unrestricted support and love. They are my foundation. They are how I became the first generation professional in my family.
Olivia, welcome to Italics.
Thank you.
The first thing I need to ask you is about your experience as an Italian American growing up.
I grew up in, I would say, I want to say a pretty modern family, but I'm also going to say a fairly traditional family at the same time. So both of those experiences were kind of blended into one. So growing up, I'm the youngest of three, the only girl, and all three of us were very much pushed towards education, and going to college was expected, going to graduate school was expected, encouraged. So there was absolutely a focus on education, but at the same time, for me especially, there was a focus on family. You know, there was a focus on developing a sort of nurturance within me and teaching me the importance of that, the importance of caring for other people, and how that is always a priority. You know, messages were always relayed to me in terms of have a good job, you know, always be able to support yourself, and don't rely on anyone. You know, even if you get married, make sure you can take care of yourself, take care of your kids.
Your parents are boomers, right? They're baby boomers, born in the late 40s, early 50s. What differences, well, your mother especially, were relayed to you about her experiences growing up and how she sort of wanted it to be different for you?
So
because there were two boys at the beginning, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. You know, and I understand that, you know, the parenting kind of shifted a bit once there was a girl in the picture, and, you know, just trying to learn to manage that in a healthy way and a positive way for everyone. My mother was pretty open about her own experience and, you know, the options that she had and didn't have simply because of the time, right, the generation that she was in, and options that are now available to me and what those options could do for me. So teaching me that education is really the ticket to have whatever kind of life I want, whether it's a life that is, you know, being a stay-at-home mom, which is wonderful, and being the best mom that you can be, or if that life means wanting to, you know, become a CEO of a business and lead that kind of life.
So here you are, this Italian-American young woman, and you go into psychology.
Yes.
So why psychology?
Yes. So I went into psychology because I really just wanted to help people. You know, I did a master's program before my social work degree in industrial organizational psychology, which is more of like the business of psychology, so to speak. So it's not clinical work, and it's more things like motivation and training and development, which was very interesting to me. But once I started working in the field, I knew very quickly that it wasn't the right field because I didn't feel like I was really helping people in any way. You know, I was helping corporations, which didn't really mix well with me. So then I went back to school for social work, knowing that I wanted to actually pursue clinical work. And it wound up being such a great fit, and all of those teachings from, you know, my mom and my grandma in terms of how to care for people and how to exude warmth and nurturance and connect with people really helped me in that field. And I felt like that actually was the framework of the therapist that I became. Not that I knew that at the time.
Yeah, you have, what do we call it?
Private practice.
A private practice, right?
I do, yes. So, you know, I work, of course, full-time for the Calandra
Right.
Institute, and then on the side I have a practice where I see clients individually and eventually, potentially in groups. And it's just an opportunity for me to reach more people. You know, I just felt as though I still had more inside me that I could give. So it was an opportunity to connect with more people, provide more services, and it also gave me a new professional role as now an entrepreneur and handling the business end of counseling, which I was never involved in before. So that has been also fascinating and a great learning experience.
What's your quote-unquote expertise as far as a psychotherapist? Where, you know?
Yes, so I do specialize in trauma, particularly with domestic violence and sexual violence. So prior to joining the Calandra Institute, I had worked for 9 years at a domestic violence and rape crisis center as a therapist, as a program coordinator, a community educator, several hats. And there I developed an expertise, and those qualities that I was speaking about in terms of that nurturance and that warmth is so useful with trauma victims because it really helps to create a scene where people feel comfortable to speak. You know, the whole premise of being a therapist doesn't work if someone doesn't feel comfortable speaking with you or they don't feel connected to you. So those qualities in particular in work with people that have experienced trauma have been tremendously helpful. So that expertise with those clients has still remained my focus in my own business. So I do predominantly work with women there and women that have experienced either domestic violence or sexual assault or child sexual abuse, anything within that realm.
What are some of the conflicts that you see in your own work that young Italian-American women face today? And are they different from, you know, from when you grew up? Are they different from when your mother's generation?
I see a lot of similar things, actually, as to when I grew up. There was a girl who had gotten a full scholarship to a college upstate somewhere. I don't remember what school, but it was relatively far. And she wasn't allowed to go simply because of the distance. So there's that dual message of, yes, we want you to have everything, you know, and pursue these opportunities, but it's going to be within this limited circle.
What about some of our CUNY students, the Italian Americans? We're at this whatever, second, third, fourth generation of college educated families, right? And, but there are still first generation college students coming to CUNY. Well, we know that, coming to CUNY in general, but also among Italian Americans, I presume.
Yes, there are. I would say the bulk of the students that I see are not first generation college students, but there definitely are some that are. I'm thinking about one girl that I did see who was the first one in her family to go to college, and she was struggling academically, which created a lot of turmoil in the family in terms of, why are we paying for this, and why do you really need to be there? And they were actually encouraging her to drop out. And she didn't want to drop out. There was a family...
Drop out of college?
Yeah, just give up. Call it quits. And they were saying to her, why are you there? Why are you doing all of this? Why are we paying for this when you can just work in the construction business with us? And there she is in my office in tears saying, I don't want to do that. And just the struggle of trying to justify why she wants to be here and that she wants a different life than what they're offering her. And the whole family worked in the business, which was the other piece. And so she had all these examples in front of her of her cousins who worked there.
So she was the outsider.
Yes, exactly. And that resulted in having to explain all the time why she wasn't thinking the way everybody else was thinking or pursuing what everyone else was pursuing.
Italian Americans in psychology. There's not a lot out there, is there?
Not to my knowledge, no, and that's something that I hope to change. I think there's a lot to explore. Even this particular project that I had worked on was so fascinating to me because it really showed me that some of what these students are experiencing isn't all that different from my experience, and we're talking 20 years later. I mean, it's different, but it's not as different, I think, as I would have expected. So that has given me a lot of insight in my work with them. But it's also important to note that these students that I was speaking with are students that sought out counseling on their own initiative, or people that are working in the profession. So these are people who may be more inclined than other people to be reflecting on their own experience, so they may have a different perspective than someone who wouldn't necessarily turn to counseling.
I think there was at one point in a generation of Italian Americans where the idea of psychotherapy was not a good thing, right? And again, we joke in saying that someone maybe who was going through some crisis, whatever, the expression was, oh, she's emotional. Instead, they really had some internal trauma that they were dealing with.
Yes, and I do hope that that has shifted tremendously. And I know it's unique to each family in terms of how it's viewed.
Yeah.
But, I don't think many of the students that I've worked with that they were talking to their parents about coming to counseling. Some of them were absolutely saying that their parents wouldn't understand why they're here, and they would say that they were thankful to have a place where they could talk about things that they really couldn't talk about with their family, which seems to be where they were expected to be talking about it. And it's not to say that there's anything wrong with the traditional upbringing. There are wonderful aspects in that too, but now I think we're in a period where young women are getting messages of modern culture and traditional culture, and it just puts them in a position of trying to navigate it and trying to figure out what suits them best.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching this episode of Italics. I'm Anthony Tamburri. Arrivederci alla prossima puntata.